Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, September 22nd, 2022, and today we are going to be talking about the state of Arizona and its highly competitive Senate race that looks like it is still very much on track to go towards the Democratic Party in a pretty significant margin. Now, this comes out of a new poll from the AARP in which they employ a Republican and Democratic pollster to work together to get a nonpartisan poll across the state. And what they have found in their results is that amongst voters in Arizona, they prefer Republicans on the generic ballot by about 1 percentage point, but in the Senate race, they prefer the Democrat Mark Kelly by 8 points. This lead for Mark Kelly is fueled largely by independent voters who seem to have swayed in favor of the Democratic Party more recently against Blake Masters and the Republican Party in general. It's not that Republicans in Arizona are underwater, but rather that Blake Masters in specific in the state of Arizona is not a popular candidate, nor one who is largely viewed as electable. And when we're reading into a lot of the data that we see from the state of Arizona, we have to understand that Arizona has a Democratic incumbent, which means in any congressional election, regardless of the year, there is some type of inherent benefit there. And you can also see in races where it's an open race, for instance, in the governor election or on the generic congressional ballot question for Arizona, Republicans are preferred by 1 point. Katie Hobbs, the Democrat, is only preferred by 1 point in the governor's race, where you have Senator Mark Kelly decided by 8 points across the ballot and 7 points in a head-to-head matchup, meaning no third-party candidates taken into consideration, with him at 50% or 52% of the vote across the state. And that's pretty substantial. It's pretty substantial largely because of the fact that this race was an automatic target for the GOP following the 2020 presidential election. President Biden only won Arizona by a very narrow margin. You are talking 0.3%, 11,000 votes out of 3 million cast. It was one of the closest elections of the entire election cycle, the second closest state, and one of the closest of the 21st century in terms of overall election margins. And looking at the Senate race there, Mark Kelly outperformed President Biden, but only won by about 2 points. So he defeated an electoral incumbent, Martha McSally. She was the senator there who was appointed by the governor following a vacancy due to the passing of Senator John McCain. So what you found here was that the race did flip to the Democratic Party. It was a 2-point victory, but 2 points is by no means a very solid one. In addition, the national environment was expected to be significantly better in 2020 than it would be in 2022, but we're actually starting to see 2022 turn into what might be a mediocre year for both parties, which means Democrats could have a shot. I also think the Republican Party made a number of missteps across the entire country when it came down to their nomination process. They have candidates like Blake Masters, Herschel Walker, Dr. Oz, a lot of people who I would say in general I don't think fit the traditional Republican voice, value, etc., nor do I think they fit the traditional Republican, electoral candidate, meaning that I think there is, and it's a lot of thinking here because I'm not someone who can determine things to be true or not, but what I can determine is the way that these candidates are performing based off of their own candidate quality. And Blake Masters in Arizona is one of these candidates where the Republican Party may have chosen the person that might represent the majority of the party in terms of ideology, but certainly not the majority of the nation. And you're finding that to be the main reason as to why Blake Masters is losing this Senate race, where Republicans are leading statewide. It also comes down to candidate perception. I want to take a look at the Senate race in specific before we get into anything else, because it also matters about how voters view you as a candidate. Blake Masters has an unfavorability rating as a non-incumbent of 54%, a favorability rating of just 37%. Mark Kelly, on the other hand, that's negative 17 on the overall spread for Blake Masters. Mark Kelly, 50% favorable, 46% unfavorable. Mark Kelly is approved of or favored by about 4 points statewide. So you are talking about a 21-point difference on the overall net between Mark Kelly and Blake Masters, with Blake Masters being in the negative at negative 17%. And you can start to realize this is why voters are more apprehensive about going for Blake Masters. Because when you look at Katie Hobbs, sure, she's up by 4, but she's not at the 50 mark. And Carrie Lake is doing better than Blake Masters, and realistically, this hovers around where other candidates have been in the past and still won the race in the state of Arizona. Honestly speaking, Mark Kelly is just really going above and beyond being at 50% as an incumbent senator, and Blake Masters is doing significantly worse than any other candidate that was polled in this AARP poll. So What I take away from Mark Kelly's lead is that the state of Arizona is still remaining a consistent and strong Democratic hold for these midterm elections. I don't think an 8-point margin of victory is what we will see on Election Day, but I do think we could see an expansion relative to 2020. And if we were to ever have an improvement for Democrats in Arizona relative to 2020, it would spell out good news for them in 2024 and many years beyond. Because Arizona and Georgia are two states that have consistently grown in terms of population and thus grown in Democratic Party vote share year after year after year. And after they flipped for the first time since the 90s in 2020, they seemed as if they were on track to continue Democrats doing well in these states. And if Democrats can do better in Arizona relative to the last election, when a national environment was significantly better for Democrats, it will be a shining victory for Democrats and a very good one for them to look to as they head into the next election years, well beyond 2022. Looking at our Senate forecast too in the state of Arizona, it has been very clear for a while that the Democrats were going to win here, but the Republicans were so convinced that it was going to change after Labor Day. Okay, then it was going to change later down the line. Now they're predicting it'll change sometime in mid-October, and I don't doubt that Arizona will become more competitive. But I don't think our overall winner will change in Arizona at this point in time. Yes, there is time between now and the election, and I recognize that, I understand that. That's not something that's lost on me by anything. I've definitely seen races change very dramatically in the final instances of the campaign season, but Mark Kelly has built up such a war chest in terms of fundraising, ad spending, polling data, whatever it might be. Mark Kelly is outperforming Blake Masters on every single level possible, and national Republicans are recognizing that. You might remember my video from about a month ago talking about how Mitch McConnell's super PAC for the Republican Party has canceled ad buys in Arizona. Now, they canceled ad buys up until Labor Day, and that was a big warning sign because it was telling us that they did not want to invest in this race ahead of Labor Day because, A, it either means that they think this race is solid, which obviously is not true based off of internal GOP leaks, based off the way that they are talking about it from the NRSC, national Republicans, whatever it might be, or B, they don't have the money to spend this early on, and they want to reserve whatever they do have left for later down the line. So waiting until after Labor Day, it gave voters about 2 months to see the last-minute ad push from the Senate GOP Super PAC, the Senate Leadership Fund, led by Mitch McConnell, who pretty much makes the decisions on where this money is going. And he said, pull out of Arizona now, pull out of Alaska, probably because he thinks Alaska is a safe bet for Lisa Murkowski, but the Arizona call was certainly one. That was quite shocking. But then Republicans were saying, okay, just wait until Labor Day and then you will see the Blake Masters surge. That didn't happen. Not only did that not happen, but post Labor Day, which where we are right now, 2 weeks after Labor Day, the Senate Leadership PAC, Mitch McConnell's Super PAC, agreed to cancel all remaining TV ads in the state of Arizona. Meaning for the final 2 months, we are less than 2 months away now. We are less than 60 days away, less than 50 days away, actually. I think we're on day 48, 47 until the midterms. The Senate Leadership Fund canceled all remaining TV ads, which means now it's up to Blake Masters and his supporters to get more ads out there. And as numbers like this start to trickle back in, it causes this lack of confidence in Blake Masters as a candidate in the state of Arizona, and consequently, these more rich Republican donors who have the means to support Masters in this race may no longer. Because when they see what's happening, you can read the tea leaves and you can read them truly. When you see Mitch McConnell, in essence, give up his own money and take it out of what it was expected to be one of the most close and competitive races of this election cycle, many Republicans follow suit because they realize that this race at some point no longer becomes winnable, and Mitch McConnell seems to have decided that that has already been declared. And it's fascinating to see how far this drop-off has gone from the Republican Party. 538 always had the Democrats ahead, but for a period of time, Republicans had a 42% chance at victory in Arizona. And when you look at the predicted betting markets, which is just the betting odds for people who spend money and predict elections and actually put their money where their mouth is, essentially, you find that for periods of time, sometimes a month or two, the Republicans led Mark Kelly across this race. The 27th of June, Republicans were at 57 cents for a yes share. Democrats were at 46 cents. And today, that has completely gone in a different direction. And now it's about a 1/3 chance that Republicans win if the betting markets were to be extrapolated to chances, whereas before, it was nearly a 60% chance. So you are seeing a super significant drop-off. You are seeing the Democrats practically surge in Arizona and maintain that surge. At what point does it end? It doesn't seem to be now. And at some point in time, the Republican Party, not only Mitch McConnell, who has already realized this, but many other Republicans are going to realize that some states simply are not going to go their direction and that resources and allocation of funds need to go elsewhere. Because following this decision from Mitch McConnell in both fronts, the Republican Party has now announced that they are spending money on New Hampshire, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, all states that they still believe are within reach. Interesting to me that they think Arizona is further out of reach than New Hampshire by percentage. That's not true according to 538, but they might see something there that Democrats do not, that Republicans, on the pundit side maybe do not as well. But I definitely think Arizona should be more of a priority than New Hampshire, but that's not my call. The call comes down to Senator Mitch McConnell. The call comes down to the Senate Leadership Fund. The call comes down to many other Republicans who are invested within this race, who have a lot of money, Peter Thiel and others, who can fund individual party expenditures that aren't doing it in Arizona. And it's a big red flag, and it's telling us that they also may see something that we do not. Because we have been treating Arizona as this extremely competitive race, and in many ways, it should be. But based off of who we have in office, based off of who we have opposing that said incumbent, we don't find voters too confident in backing Blake Masters, the Republican nominee for Senate, even though they are very willing to back the Republicans on the overall spread, very willing to back Carrie Lake in the overall spread. Carrie Lake is at 48, the Republicans are at 48, and yet Blake Masters is at 42. These are the same voters that, again, preference the Republican Party, the same voters that disapprove of Biden by 11 points across the state. 48 to 47, GOP to Dem, Republicans lead by 1, in the governor's race, the Democrats lead by 1. It's a difference here, but it's not super significant and can be explained by candidate quality. But so can the Senate race, just in a way that is so much more detrimental to the GOP and their overall expectations for the midterm year. So Arizona, I think, as we look forward to expect data, to read data, whatever it might be, the polling numbers tell us that there isn't a good look for the Republican Party at this point in time. As much as they have been really banking on Arizona going towards the Republican Party, it now seems increasingly more out of reach. And things aren't exactly going to get better. With the absence of TV ads from the Senate Leadership Fund means that other organizations are now going to need to focus on this state. And a few $1 million isn't going to cut it. Mark Kelly has raised over $10 million for this race. Blake Masters hasn't even scratched that. And the fact remains, the Democrats have outsourced, out-fundraised, and outflanked the GOP on every single front. And you are now starting to see how severe those implications are for the National Republican Party. Because once Arizona becomes out of reach, you narrow down the playing field for the GOP. Because right now, based off of chances, Pennsylvania is no longer in reach for the GOP. New Hampshire is no longer in reach for the GOP. Arizona is no longer in reach. And Colorado isn't either. These are 4 states. The GOP either holds 1, Pennsylvania, or we're targeting 3 earlier on in this year. In fact, they went so bizarrely to try to target Washington. The NRSC spent millions of dollars on Washington, where the Republicans have a 3% chance at victory, because they went too far. And when you go too far and you spend too much money and you run out of money, you have to start making cuts later down the line. And those cuts do come from states like Washington, like Colorado, like New Hampshire, but you also see them come out of states like Arizona. States that would have been competitive, states that should have been competitive, states that were entirely within reach for the GOP, that no longer are, either at their own doing or because Democrats have outsourced, out-fundraised, and outflanked them on every front. Unfortunately for the GOP, all of that happened in the state of Arizona. A combination of bad candidate quality plus good candidate quality for the Democratic Party has ultimately boosted their chances at victory, the Democrats' chance at victory in Arizona. And I think what we will find is that 2022 will force the GOP to do a lot of introspection about who they nominate for these competitive seats. Less high chance at victory in Arizona compared to where Martha McSally was back in 2020. And the fact that that is even possible, the fact that Blake Masters might perform worse than Martha McSally did when Arizona went blue for the first time since 1996, is telling in itself. And it tells us a lot, especially considering this national environment being so significantly and painstakingly better for the GOP than it was previously. But at the end of the day, that's just the consequences of their own actions. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 Senate election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.